In a quiet Arkansas town where police sirens meant safety and Sunday barbecues meant unity, one family's twisted betrayal ended with a body, a ruined badge, and a marriage drowned in secrets. The woman thought she'd married a protector. But behind the uniform, her husband was running a secret affair with someone no one expected. Her own blood. This isn't just a story of cheating. It's about power, manipulation, and a decision that ended in brutal, calculated murder. Springdale, Arkansas. A town big enough to go unnoticed, small enough to never outrun a secret. Deputy Cole Matthews was the kind of man everyone trusted. 34 years old. U.S. Army vet turned sheriff's deputy. Loved by his colleagues, respected by his pastor, and, until it all collapsed, married to a woman who believed he was her safe place. That woman was Angela Matthews, 31. High school biology teacher, known for her calm voice and Sunday school volunteering. To outsiders, Angela and Cole were picture perfect. Two high school sweethearts turned stable adults. But nothing about their life was real. 4 or 5 years, they lived in a 3-bedroom home on Maplewood Street, where Angela made dinner at 6 and Cole came home just late enough to avoid the questions. They had no children. Angela said they were waiting. In reality, they'd been trying for 3 years. Every failed pregnancy wore her down. Every sigh from Cole after a hospital visit stung deeper than the last. And somewhere in those silences, the door opened to Holly Underwood, Angela's 25-year-old cousin, a nursing student who had moved into their guest room temporarily after a car accident. Sweet, soft-spoken, and dependent on Cole for rides to class while Angela worked late. What started as an awkward house dynamic quickly turned into something much darker. While Angela clung to hope and hormone treatments, Cole and Holly found a different way to connect. Quiet touches, late-night rides, whispered conversations in the garage. It was a betrayal growing in the shadows, fed by guilt, lust, and something darker, control. Cole wasn't just cheating. He was documenting it. Every message, every photo, every secret. Stored, archived, like trophies. Why? Because Cole had a plan. And it didn't include Angela. But Angela had eyes. And eventually, she saw too much. It started with a single message left open on Cole's laptop. A text thread between him and Holly that ended with the words, "Soon, she won't be in the way." Angela didn't confront them. She copied the thread, emailed it to herself, and began watching both of them, every move, every glance, every excuse. And then, Angela made a decision. One that no one saw coming. But to understand what pushed her there, we need to go back to where the affair truly began. And why, for Cole Matthews, this was never about love. It was about power. Cole Matthews didn't fall for Holly Underwood by accident. She wasn't just a younger woman in his home. She was a mirror reflecting everything Angela had stopped being for him. Dependent, admiring, and naive. To Cole, Holly was more than an escape. She was leverage, a way to reclaim control in a life he felt slipping from his hands. His marriage had turned into a schedule of fertility appointments and silent dinners. His badge didn't hold the weight it once did, reduced to domestic calls and parking tickets in a town where nothing ever happened. But Holly was different. She looked at him like he mattered, like the uniform still meant something. And that was all Cole needed. At first, their relationship was quiet. Hidden glances when Angela wasn't around. A hand resting a beat too long. But it escalated faster than either of them planned. Within 2 months of moving in, Holly was sneaking into the garage late at night. By month 3, Cole was paying for her nursing school tuition through a separate bank account Angela didn't know existed. Holly wasn't clueless, though. She understood her cousin's marriage wasn't perfect, but she also saw opportunity. Cole had influence, connections, money, and for a woman who'd grown up bouncing between relatives and part-time jobs, that kind of security was intoxicating. They convinced themselves they were in love. But what bonded them wasn't affection, it was shared secrecy. And in that secrecy, a dangerous alliance formed. Meanwhile, Angela had stopped sleeping. She wasn't confronting Cole. Not yet, but she was collecting. Every deleted text, every receipt, every ATM withdrawal he couldn't explain. She created a private folder on a flash drive, labeled it with a student's name, tucked it in her desk at work. And then she began digging into Cole's past, into things she'd never thought to question before. What she found made her blood run cold. 6 years ago, before their marriage, Cole had dated a woman named Tara Mullins. She had filed a restraining order, citing emotional coercion and stalking. The report had vanished from public records, but Angela requested it through a contact at the courthouse. What she read wasn't just alarming, it was violent. Obsessive surveillance, threats, property damage. A man who needed control and punished anyone who resisted. Angela didn't know what scared her more, that she was living with a predator, or that she had never seen it until now. At the same time, Holly started changing. She stopped asking for help, started staying out later, avoided Cole's texts. It didn't take long for Cole to sense the shift, and it rattled him. One night, he followed her. She was at a bar just outside town, sitting with a man Cole didn't recognize, someone her age, laughing, leaning in. It was innocent by most standards, but for Cole, it felt like betrayal. That night, he didn't sleep. Instead, he sat at the kitchen table until sunrise, replaying every moment, every lie, every kiss. And somewhere between 4 and 5 a.m., he made a decision. If he couldn't have both women on his terms, no one would. But first, he needed to ensure no one could trace what was coming. Angela began working late, not because she had extra duties, but because her house no longer felt like home. She could sense the walls watching her. Every silence between rooms felt staged, every hug from Cole stiff with guilt. But she wasn't the same woman who had ignored the early warning signs. Now she was planning, watching as carefully as she was being watched. The difference? She wasn't planning to run. She wanted evidence that would hold up, proof that would make the law take notice. What she didn't realize was that Cole had already crossed a dangerous line. He started modifying his behavior at work, volunteered for night shifts, started storing his department-issued firearm in his truck, not in the locked bedroom drawer where it usually stayed. These weren't accidents. They were quiet moves with calculated intent. Meanwhile, Holly's loyalty began to waver. She started asking questions Cole didn't like. Questions about the future, about Angela, about whether he'd ever leave. And each question chipped away at Cole's carefully crafted illusion of control. One evening, while Angela stayed late at the school for parent-teacher conferences, Cole took Holly on a drive. Not a date, something colder. He brought her to an empty hunting cabin 30 miles outside town. Said he was fixing it up. Told her it could be their escape plan. She didn't ask why the electricity had been shut off, or why there were zip ties in the glove box. She should have. That same week, Angela visited a divorce attorney. Quietly. She didn't file. She wasn't ready yet, but she gathered the paperwork. She asked about restraining orders. She wanted to know what would happen if she exposed an officer. She left the office with two things, a legal strategy and a warning. If it's unstable, prepare for escalation, especially if he knows you're pulling away. That warning echoed in her mind the next morning when her car tires were slashed in the school parking lot. Nothing else was taken. Nothing else touched. Just the tires. She didn't report it. But that night, she slept with a kitchen knife under her pillow. Cole, on the other hand, believed he was still in control. He saw Angela's silence as fear. He saw Holly's hesitation as weakness. He thought both women were in check. He didn't know Angela had made copies of his texts with Holly. He didn't know she had filmed one of their private conversations on her phone. He didn't know she had mailed those files to a friend in Little Rock with instructions. If anything happens to me, give this to the police. And Holly? She wasn't who she had been either. She had begun keeping her own records, audio clips, voice notes, receipts of every gift Cole had ever bought her. She was no longer just a mistress. She was now a liability. And that's when everything snapped. Cole got a call from Angela's phone at 2:14 a.m. But it wasn't Angela's voice on the other end. It was Holly. She was crying, whispering. She knows. She found out. She's coming for both of us. Cole didn't hesitate. He grabbed his keys, his badge, and his gun. He thought he was going to fix everything. But he was walking straight into a trap. The night air was thick with tension as Cole sped down Highway 62, his dashboard lights flickering across his hollow expression. Holly's voice still echoed in his ears, frantic, scared, and full of something he hadn't expected. Betrayal. He didn't call Angela. He didn't alert dispatch. He just drove. His tires crunched gravel as he pulled up to the old cabin, headlights slicing through the darkness. The door was slightly ajar. He stepped inside, gun drawn. No sounds. No voices. Just the creak of floorboards beneath his boots and the smell of cold wood and stale air. Then, footsteps behind him. He spun. It was Holly, tear-streaked, shaking, wearing one of Angela's jackets. "She's gone," she whispered, "but she knows everything." Cole grabbed her wrists, shaking. "What did you tell her?" "Nothing, I swear." But the truth was already out. Angela had found everything. Phone records, emails, even photos from the cabin. She'd been playing quiet for months, preparing for this night. Holly had only just realized that by helping Cole, she'd been turning herself into a pawn in a game she didn't even understand. Cole paced the floor, rage bubbling just beneath the surface. He couldn't lose control now, not when everything was so close to coming undone. Then he saw it. A phone recorder on the windowsill. Still active. Still blinking. He grabbed it and smashed it against the wall, his pulse thundering. "You set me up?" he hissed. "No," Holly pleaded. "It wasn't me." But it was too late for explanations. In Cole's mind, the betrayal wasn't just from Angela. It was from both women. They had cornered him, stripped him of control. And Cole Matthews had never been one to surrender. Back at the house, Angela wasn't hiding. She was waiting. She sat on the living room couch, lights off, her phone resting on the coffee table beside her. She had forwarded everything, messages, files, audio, to 3 different contacts, including a local news reporter who'd once covered Cole's promotions. She knew what she was doing. Angela wasn't just protecting herself. She was preparing to expose everything. His misconduct, the abuse, the affair. And then, headlights. She heard his boots hit the porch. 1, 2, 3 knocks. No words. Angela stood and opened the door. He looked different, sweating, eyes darting, as if the law he wore had finally become a costume he couldn't take off fast enough. "Where is she?" he asked. Angela stepped aside. "You tell me." That moment, raw and silent, was a final standoff. And then a scream, Holly's scream, from inside the house. Cole lunged, but it wasn't toward Angela. It was toward the hallway. Angela followed and stopped cold. Holly was there, face blooded, holding a cast-iron skillet, shaking uncontrollably. At her feet was Cole's gun. He reached for it. Angela moved faster. One shot rang out. The silence that followed didn't feel like victory. It felt like a home collapsing inward. The moment the shot echoed through the house, time fractured. Holly dropped the skillet and sank to the floor, her breath ragged, her eyes fixed on Cole's motionless body. Angela stood frozen, her hands trembling around the pistol, heart pounding so hard it felt like it might rupture. Cole Matthews, deputy sheriff, lay face down in the hallway of his own home. Blood spread across the hardwood like spilled oil, slow, wide and irreversible. Angela didn't move until Holly began sobbing. Then, in a daze, she picked up the phone and dialed 911. Her voice on the recording was calm, eerie in its steadiness. "There's been a shooting. The officer is down. My husband. I pulled the trigger." Police arrived 8 minutes later. Paramedics followed. Cole was declared dead on the scene. But things didn't get easier. The house was sealed as a crime scene. Angela and Holly were separated, questioned for hours by detectives who knew Cole personally, men who had worked next to him for years. Now they were asking his wife if she'd murdered him in cold blood. Angela didn't deny pulling the trigger. But when she began revealing the truth about the affair, the recordings, the threats, the tone of the interrogation shifted. Investigators went from skeptical to rattled. Angela handed over digital files, names of friends she had sent evidence to, even a voice memo from Holly recorded 2 weeks prior, crying about Cole's manipulation. Still, Angela wasn't treated like a victim. She was a suspect with motive, opportunity, and a clear memory of what she'd done. A woman who had chosen not to leave, but to act. Meanwhile, Holly was sent to the hospital with a mild concussion. Her injuries were consistent with a struggle, but her story was messy. She admitted to the affair, denied planning anything with Angela, and claimed she feared for her life the moment Cole drove her back to the house. When detectives asked her why she screamed, she simply said, "I saw something in his eyes. He wasn't Cole anymore." Publicly, the case exploded. A beloved local officer, gunned down in his home by his wife. Rumors swirled before the facts could catch up. News vans camped outside the police station. Facebook threads brimmed with half-truths and outrage. To some, Angela was a murderer with an agenda. To others, she was the only one who had the courage to stop a ticking time bomb. What no one knew, not yet, was that Angela's files included one final recording, never played for investigators. It was audio captured just days before Cole's death. His voice was calm, even casual. "She thinks she's clever. But when it's time, I'll handle it. I've got everything I need to bury her." Angela hadn't released it yet. She was saving it for the courtroom. And Holly? She hadn't disappeared. In fact, she had just retained a lawyer. Because while Cole's chapter had ended, the legal storm was only beginning. And the most chilling part? Someone had wiped Cole's second phone, the one he'd always kept hidden. Whatever was on it was gone. 6 months after the shooting, the trial began. Angela Matthews entered the Benton County Courthouse under heavy security, her face pale but composed. Outside, protesters gathered with signs, some condemning her, others defending her actions as necessary. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with quiet tension. The prosecution painted her as a calculating wife, a woman who discovered infidelity and took justice into her own hands. They emphasized that Cole was unarmed when she fired, that she could have walked away, called for help, chosen another path. But the defense had a different story. They presented months of digital evidence, surveillance photos, fake identities Cole had used online, the abusive text messages, the bruises Angela had photographed weeks before the shooting. Then came the voice recordings, meticulously catalogued, time-stamped, verified. When the jury heard Cole's voice on the final clip, casually discussing a solution to his marital problem, many shifted in their seats. One juror quietly wiped a tear. The mood in the courtroom changed. Still, Angela wasn't portrayed as a hero. Her lawyer didn't ask for pity, only understanding. They focused on coercion, psychological warfare, a pattern of control that built over time. The goal wasn't to erase guilt. It was to explain it. Holly was next. Dressed conservatively, her tone wavering, she described how Cole lured her into an affair under false promises. She admitted her role in the deception, but she also confessed to fearing Cole's temper, to seeing another side of him behind closed doors. On cross-examination, the prosecution hammered her with contradictions. Why didn't she leave the house? Why return to someone she feared? Her response was quiet but devastating. I thought I was the only one being used. I didn't realize until it was too late that we both were. Then came the bombshell. Midway through the second week, Angela's attorney submitted a newly discovered backup from Cole's hidden cloud account. Contained within it was a document labeled Final Plan. It was a chilling outline, typed by Cole himself, listing steps to publicly disgrace Angela. Stage photos, leak messages, frame her for infidelity, secure a custody case in the event of future children, and under one bullet point, if needed, permanent removal, stage break-in, use service weapon. The courtroom froze. Angela wept for the first time during the trial. The judge granted the defense team additional time to authenticate the document. Once verified, it became the cornerstone of the defense. The jury deliberated for 12 hours. When they returned, the courtroom stood silent. We, the jury, find the defendant, Angela Matthews, not guilty on all charges. Gasps filled the room, some in relief, others in disbelief. Angela was free, but freedom didn't feel like victory. She sold the house, quit teaching, moved to another state under a different name, wholly vanished from the public eye entirely. But the case stayed alive in podcasts and documentaries where true crime fanatics debated every detail. And one final question lingered. Was Angela the woman who survived a monster, or the one who finally became him? Drop your comment below and let us know. Angela pulled the trigger, but was it justice or survival? And what if the real story wasn't who died, but who got away? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Was Angela a hero, or just another kind of danger? If this case left you questioning everything about love, loyalty, and manipulation, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more crime stories like this.